Welcome to the TMI Doctor, talking all things TMI and health and wellness. Here's a highlight from today's episode.
I would say you probably don't need as much time as you think. The minimum effective dose is 2 days a week.
Yeah, great.
And realistically, my workouts personally for me take about 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the way I think about it is your family, your kids, what they're gonna want from you is not those 45 minutes twice a week. They're gonna want to see you in your 80s thriving. You
Oh.
know,
I am the TMI doctor, Dr. Tanya Yannick. I am a pelvic PT, also background in orthopedics and sports, and I'm here with Casey Westbrook, mountain biker. I think it's all the adventuring things trainer for women. So we're here today, and we're going to talk about all things about that and see how we can help you. So tell me, Casey, what got you into what you do now? Like, describe what you do and what brought you to it.
Yeah, so I am a strength and conditioning coach, and I'm also in my personal life. I'm a mountain biker. I love playing outside. So I've always been into movement ever, basically my whole life. I've loved moving, and initially it was going down the rabbit hole of what can I do for my career? I thought I was going to be a PT, and that just didn't align with my what I wanted in my life. And I found strength and conditioning, and I was like, this is awesome. This is fun. I love this. And I've been I guess 9 years ago, I started coaching at the YMCA.
Oh, great.
And yeah, the Y. And at the time, I was an ultra marathon runner. So I was running a lot of ultras and long distances, which ultimately resulted in me getting an injury that kept me from running for about 2 years. Just kind of a classic runner story, doing
Yep.
absolutely zero strength training. And yeah, I learned a ton. I found that, it's nice to have your eggs not all in one basket in terms of what you
Hmm.
do. So I learned oh, I love strength training. I actually love all of these other sports that maybe are more skill based. Running isn't very skill based. It's just can you do something for a long time? Um, so I ultimately found these other sports, and I found that my strength training did like had a huge impact on specifically mountain biking, which became is my new love, really. And I was like, this is amazing. And I was already doing strength and conditioning, and I just started targeting what is going to work for us as mountain bikers. I've done CrossFit, I've done powerlifting, I've done bodybuilding, and all those things just didn't quite work. Is
Well, that's
leaning.
very interesting that you didn't find that those things, because that is the hard thing. Like everyone's like, you got to cross train. It's like, well, how do you cross train?
Exactly. Yeah.
And
So
it
I
would
think
sound like those things are very important. So it's like,
yeah,
hmm.
yeah. So it's I tried CrossFit, which I loved and was really fun, but it ultimately left me feeling really burned out for my mountain biking. So I was like, okay, how do people cross train for this stuff? And I found what I do now, which is more of an athletic training focus. So it's how are our elite level athletes training, and why can't we recreational athletes train like that? We totally can, and we should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
That's super
that's
great.
what I do. Yeah.
That's great. That's actually it's a similar track how I ended up in PT. It did
Right.
align with my values. And yeah, so I was playing derby at the time, and I thought I was gonna have to quit skating because my foot hurt, and my ex partner's father is a PT and was like, wait, let me take a look at your feet, and recommended just like a couple things. And then suddenly I could skate almost pain free. And I'm like, what is this magic? And I'm like, because I was very much like, I want to continue to be, thrive and be vibrant. I don't want to be the you turn 25 and you go off to pasture. That's kind of like my family background. Like they're like, oh, after you're done with all that, we don't do those things anymore. I'm like, why? I don't understand why.
It's such an interesting mentality in our culture. It's you hit a certain age and you're old now and you can't do anything. And I'm fortunate to live in this community where we're no, I have examples of women in their 80s skiing every day, and I mountain biking every day. And it's just I choose to not believe that, and not believe that hey, we turn 30 and things fall apart. No, it's there's so much you can do, and we have some amazing health professionals that are gonna help you do that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. One of my favorite stories is I went to a ski resort once, and there was a group of older women, and they all had I think it was the 80 plus club, and they were so adorable in their skin. They're like, yeah. And I was like, I looked at them like, you are my heroes. And they're like, yeah, you can do it too. And I'm like, I want to be you when I grow up.
So true.
So
Yeah,
I
so
was like, oh, they're so adorable. So yeah, that's I have that mental image of them every time. I'm like, oh, I don't want to, and I'm like, but I want to be like them, and I'm pretty sure they don't just sit around.
no. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you feel like? You said you found that like CrossFit and all that. I'm also a mountain biker, so that's also why I follow you because I was like, oh, I need some of this stuff. And yeah, like I just was curious. I'm always curious as a professional, like, well, what is different between this training, that training? What has been the sweet spot? Like, what do you feel like the other things that you tried lacked that you kind of found was like, helpful?
Yeah, I think, when I think about CrossFit, it's a sport,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Like it's technically a sport, like you can go and compete in it. So when you're training for CrossFit, you're training to get good at that sport.
Ah, okay. So it's specific
Uh,
to like, almost
yeah,
to their contests and stuff. Okay, gotcha. Yeah,
totally.
that makes a
So
lot
there's
of
that piece. And then there's managing intensity.
yeah.
So mountain biking is like no matter what I don't care where you live, like it's an intense sport. Like
Yeah.
there's challenging terrain. You're not just like out there cruising on a flat road for hours and you can't
Mhm.
like just manage, you can't spend your time in like this easy intensity. So I like to look at like how can we manage our intensity is a big part of it. So CrossFit is high intense. Like when you go to a CrossFit workout, you're doing a lift and then you're doing a Metcon, which is you're getting your heart rate up for 10 to 20 minutes at a fairly high intensity. So if you're training CrossFit and mountain biking, you're spending all your time up here and you're not diversifying like the metabolic pathways that you're training.
Oh,
So
okay, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, so you're gonna like it leads to a lot of like burnout for some people unless you have your nutrition, your sleep, like absolutely everything dialed, which most of us just don't. Like we
No.
live in society where that's not the case.
Yeah, most of probably both of our clients are like, I got the kids, I got my job, I got the this, I got the that. And then they're like, and also I need to cross train for this other, like, this sport I love to do. And you're like, all right, how do we make this sustainable?
Yeah. And then the
Tricky.
other piece is like, hey, if you're training for like an athlete, right? We need to develop power, we need to develop speed, quickness, we need to develop all these different areas.
Yeah.
So a big part of my training is also developing like those pieces, which primarily consists of plyometrics.
Okay. Awesome.
So
I
I
love
think
those.
those really need to be, they're so much fun. And I think for mountain bikers, they really translate well. It's like quick, poppy, powerful punchiness on the bike, which we need if we're doing any sort of technical terrain, if we're jumping, if we're like riding any sort of features,
Yeah.
we need to like have like quick, agile motion. 'Cause you
I'm
never know
saying
what
rocks and roots, man.
and
That's
I
all
know like out on the East Coast, you guys like have so much more of that. It's like you need to be able to respond quickly.
yeah.
So can we
Oh,
develop
so much.
that? And we can with our training.
Yeah, when I first moved to New England, the Boston area from Cleveland, Ohio, a
Cool.
little bit different terrain. I love
Yeah.
mountain biking, and I remember like my first or second mountain bike ride that I was going out by myself. It was the pandemic. I didn't know anyone in the area, and I just remember like half an hour in, I'm like, am I still a mountain biker? Because this is really hard out here. This is like a different level of like rocks and roots. Because like Ohio, it's like rolling hills with like some
Mhm.
rock gardens. And here it's just like, here's your trail. And it's literally just a rock garden the entire time. And you're like,
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
about this. But as it turns out, you keep training, you keep like doing all the, riding with people that, wait up for you. And also the cross training is very important. I did get better and now I can actually ride those trails now. So, but
Yeah.
it was definitely a shock when I moved here. It was a completely different riding experience.
Oh
So
my gosh.
where do you ride? What's your home
I'm
trail?
in Oregon, in Bend,
Okay.
Oregon.
So
Yeah.
it's not too techy out there. I think Oregon's
No.
no
Mm-mm. Yeah,
nice
I would
rolling hills.
say, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say rolling hills, but we're like lava and sand. So we don't have any sort of rock. And like,
Okay.
I mean, we have lava,
Yeah,
lava,
yeah. Lots of lover.
totally
I would
different
not
thing.
have thought of that, but I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We're
I've
in we call it the ring of fire. A lot of that.
okay. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So I have a question for you. So I get the question as a pelvic PT a lot about bike saddles
Yeah.
and pelvic pain. I don't know if you ever like in your trainings, like women ask about like how, or anybody asks about like what do you recommend? Is there anything that you tell them, or do you just kind of say like, you'll get used to it?
No, definitely not. Yeah, this is like, I don't know, this has been like the last year of coaching and working with pelvic floor PTs myself. But getting the right seat is, I think, really crucial and can actually lead to you not having to wear a chamois while you're riding, which has been like for me so amazing because I don't love chamois.
Yeah.
But yeah, my biggest advice is like go and get your sit bones measured and make sure you
Mhm.
have like the right seat for the width of your pelvis.
Yeah.
And then they make just like way more comfortable seats. I think the one you showed, just like seats that are more designed for like, I think even men are switching to like the supposedly women specific seat because it fits better with like our genitalia and all that. But yeah, get the right seat. Like your hips will, your like pelvis will thank you, your pelvic floor will thank you. Like you're gonna have way less numbness. So
Mhm.
hopefully, um, yeah. So I recommend go to your local bike shop. Most of them will have a way to measure your sit bones
Yeah.
and make sure your seat is wide enough for you. And then yeah, I mean, I personally recommend the Ergon seat and the
Okay.
Mimic seat. Those
Awesome.
are, I have the Ergon and I love the Mimic. So go and like try a few seats and find the one that works for you.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. As a
Yeah.
pelvic PT, I discovered the ISM seats. There's also other ones, but basically look for noseless seats or bike saddles. Um,
Yeah.
I even had the chance to talk to Steve Toll, who is like the founder. Like he like called, we had a whole phone conversation, which was great, and he sent me these demos. They have road specific, like mountain bike specific, and it's got this like nice little like the nose is gone. So like they try to do a lot with cutouts, but they actually did research where like if the nose is still there, it's still going to compress the nerves, the arteries, and all that. So
Mm-hmm.
not just women with numbness, men actually can have some function issues if that's compressed too much. So highly recommend these. But I know a lot of people are totally fine on like, nosed seats. But yeah, I get picked on a little bit. They're like, what is with this weird seat? And I'm like, yeah, it just like does your sit bones go here and you get no smushing up in the front.
Yeah, getting the right seat I think is really important. It's something I spent probably the first like 5 years of my riding just on a really uncomfortable seat. And yeah, I'm probably gonna be fixing that for a little bit of time,
Yep.
like what happened to my like hips and my pelvic floor. So
Yeah. And also like I think the what's interesting is what people want to do, like the big smushy seats is probably the worst thing you can do because it actually like increases the surface area. Like I think maybe temporarily, but like I've heard like I've treated people, they're like the more they try to get bigger seats, the worse it gets.
interesting. Yeah.
Because they're getting
Well,
more chafing and stuff too, because they're trying to
yeah,
pedal. They're like,
like those
oh,
really big like
yeah.
cruiser seats.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm like, no, no, no. I
they're
know
cool.
temporarily that might be a good solution, but like if you're gonna be like increasing your riding, like you gotta maybe to begin with, but maybe switch to a different saddle as you get used to it. I
Mhm.
do call it I call it spring butt because every, winter, like as much as you try to be like at least I
Yeah.
try to go year round. Like of course there's a dip when the weather's
Mhm.
garbage and the holidays are happening and
Totally.
I like go for those first few rides in the spring. You're like, oh, okay, it's a little tender sitting the next day.
Can be uncomfortable for a minute, but it should change after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so what is one tip you have for women that are trying to, busy professionals, busy parents, is there like one thing you could like just tell every person you meet, like how to manage their cross training or fitness or whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have one tip, but I'd say like you probably don't need as much time as you think. The minimum effective dose is 2 days a week.
Yeah, great.
And realistically, my workouts personally for me take about 45 minutes.
Hmm.
Uh, and the way I think about it is like, your family or kids, what they're going to want from you is not those like 45 minutes, like twice a week. They're going to want to see you like in your 80s thriving.
Oh,
I think about my family and it's what I want is to see them like healthy and well and thriving. I don't want to see them like taking care of me
yeah,
like in my teens. Like that was really nice. And like I wouldn't have missed those like 2 45-minute
yeah,
sessions if it meant like right now I got like more like fulfilling time with them now and for the next 20, 30 years. So, I'm not saying like we don't like most of us don't have like a ton of time,
yes,
but it's like this will afford you like more time in your future that you have like being functional and well and healthy with your kids and then like maybe their grandkids, like what do you want to be doing with them?
yeah,
um so we're not spending like 2 hours in the gym. Like if you feel like you're spending 2 hours in a gym, get some support because
yeah,
you're you don't need to be doing that much, first of all. Um,
Might be
but
burning yourself out in the process.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
that's
yeah,
too much.
burning yourself out. So that's how I like to think about this time. It's like, yes, it feels like a lot right now. And like, how many years are you opening up the door to like playing and having fun with your family and
Yeah.
your kid?
That's awesome.
So
Yeah, that's actually an amazing tip because I think that's like the one thing that they say, and I'm like, think about. I
yeah,
mean, I'm sure everyone's got a lot on their plate, but just
every
I
day.
actually like to say snack size self care because
Mhm.
also strength training can be cumulative throughout the day.
Yeah,
Like insert like unless you're trying to get cardio or whatever, but if you're just trying to get the strength in, like I'll say like.
yeah,
We get up and stretch. So instead of eating something, maybe like spend 2 minutes to do like, a couple sets of something or like a couple sets of a few different exercises. And that'll take like just a couple minutes and then you can go back to work. And actually, I find when I do that, I'm more focused. Like sometimes in between
yes.
patients, I'm like, all right, let me do like a set of squats and like some jumping jacks. And I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
all right, I'm a little bit more weight now.
Yeah, movement is such a game changer just for helping us. Like, if like you want to be more productive and have more time, like move more, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. But I love that. Yeah. When I tell people that the strength training is actually cumulative, it like breaks their brain. I'm like, yeah, you can sprinkle it throughout the day. It doesn't have to be like you have to set aside this long amount of time at the end of the like sometime in the day to make it happen. So
Yeah, yeah, it's very different from aerobic training where you do have to kind of
yeah.
dedicate the time. I mean, to get like the aerobic benefit
Yeah.
in terms of like training, strength training is just like you do it and then you rest like for a long time, kind
Mhm.
of, and then you do it again. Yeah.
That's
So
awesome. Great. So where can we find you? Like what handles or is there any programs that you've got that people can check out?
yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, Casey Westbrook. That's the best way to connect with me. I post a lot of like content and tips around like strength training for outdoor athlete and particularly women who want to like live long, healthy lives and adventure for a long time. And then yeah, I work with women one-on-one online. So if you're curious about that, we can definitely have a conversation. Work with outdoor athletes who want to like go further, prevent injuries, and have just like more fun on the trail doing what they love to do.
Awesome. That's great. So I'll put some of that, like I'll link all your stuff at the bottom when I post this to YouTube. So I will have that for you. So thank you so much for coming on today. This is awesome. So keep adventuring long into our golden years, hopefully. So thank you so much. And yeah, thank you very much.